Are you ready to unlock your full potential and maximize your productivity? Look no further than Productivity Smarts, the ultimate audio podcast hosted by renowned productivity expert Gerald J. Leonard. In every episode, Gerald shares captivating stories, invaluable tips, and cutting-edge strategies that will transform the way you approach productivity. Whether you're looking to reduce stress, overcome overwhelm, or simply get more done in less time, Productivity Smarts has got you covered. But that's not all. You'll also gain inspiration from real-life success stories of individuals who have achieved greatness through productivity. Plus, you'll learn the latest tools, techniques, and habits that will help you achieve a new level of happiness and fulfillment in your personal and professional life. So why wait? Join us every week as we delve into the exciting world of productivity and help you unleash your full potential. Get ready to take your productivity to the next level with Productivity Smarts. As a productivity expert and host of the Productivity Smarts podcast, Gerald J. Leonard has been a proud supporter of Kiva since 2011. Kiva is a non-profit organization that helps entrepreneurs in third world countries access the capital they need to start or grow their businesses. By making a small loan through Kiva, you can help these entrepreneurs achieve their dreams, support their families, and contribute to their local economies. And with a repayment rate of over 96%, your loan can be relent to another entrepreneur once it's repaid, creating a ripple effect of positive change. So if you're looking for a meaningful way to make a difference in the world, consider making a loan through Kiva. With loans as small as $25, anyone can be a microlender and help change lives. Visit kiva.org to learn more and start lending today.
Well, today I'm speaking to Steven Melman, who is a seasoned psychotherapist with over 40 years of experience. His new book, Guidance for New Clinicians in a Chaotic World, empowers early career therapists to build confidence while staying true to their Christian and conservative values. Steven offers real-world insights to help clinicians thrive without compromising their beliefs. And I believe this can be done for coaches and trainers and other folks who are looking to have a practice in helping other people. So, Steven, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Gerald. Thank you for having me.
Excellent, excellent. Well, as I ask all my guests, what is your favorite style of music?
Oh, okay. I have pretty eclectic tastes. I love everything. I'm a 60s guy, and so as I go all the way back to Motown, that question kind of spurs me, it takes me back to memories. I grew up in Galveston, Texas, and there was a radio station called KIL. So I still remember all the top 40 hits from that era. But of course, I'm a rock and roll fan from the Beatles to the Beach Boys and then as I've matured, I've also enjoyed what they call smooth jazz.
Yes.
Okay, so I love groups like the Rippertons. I just love music, and now there's a place very close to home. Very, very fortunate. It's only like maybe 10 minutes from home, and they have all kinds of music there. And one of the things I have greatly enjoyed is orchestra. Like an 18-piece to 18-piece orchestra.
Yeah, I like orchestra.
And they'll take jazz musicians from Miles Davis to all kinds of different, and all of a sudden I'm blanking out on artists' names, but it'll give a little bit of history. So,
gotcha.
Long-winded way of answering your question, but I love music.
Excellent, excellent. Well, listen, when we first met, I talked to you about your book, and you told me what it was about. I really love the title of the book, but I really love your subtitle, How to Practice Your Craft While Preserving Your Traditional Values. And that's kind of what I focus my questions on and our conversation around. And so let me just ask you for your own self, because I know you've done a lot of work and you've been doing this for a while. I think you said 25 years of being in the practice of running your own clinic and working full-time and doing things with the government, but then, developing your own practice. What do you think has made you so successful in this field of mental health, where working with clients can be very challenging and you can run into all different types of scenarios that you talk about in your book and different stories? And what do you think has made you so successful throughout your career?
Gosh, there's certainly no one thing. As you were asking the question, I was thinking, okay, so where do I start? One of the very first pieces of advice that was ever given to me, hopefully it doesn't come across as is I'm very, very sensitive to clients, but I was once told, be careful, Steve, when you're wanting more for your clients than they're wanting for you. And
Yeah.
it's said so much that as much as you're with your client during the time you're with them, when you finish with them, you can't continue to think about them or you're going to be lost with your next client. Or you get so wrapped up that you forget your own life.
Yes.
So you have to. So I'm old school. That once upon a time, and when you worked at a place, you clocked in and you clocked out.
Yes.
So clocking in is being mindful. It's being present. It's
Right.
blocking out everything about your personal life, and you're focusing on each client that you're seeing. But
Exactly. Exactly.
But when you leave, you got to clock out, which means I left so I try to say things in a humorous way. I have a file cabinet that contains all of my client records, but also in that file cabinet that's lockable, I take out the part of my brain that deals with work. And so all aspects of clients and work all goes in a lockable file cabinet. And so I take with me when I leave all my thoughts about my personal life.
Yes.
So real fast. So when you're at home, I kid around and I say, when a person has just changed zip codes, they're still focused on work and they're at home. I
Yeah.
go, you're cheating on your spouse. You're cheating on your family. What do you mean? I'm monogamous. I'm true to my wife or husband. I go, no, I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying you change zip codes, but mentally you're still at work.
Yeah. I think that happens to a lot of people now, especially when you work from home. A lot of people do still work from home. I know a lot of people have been called back into the office, but when you work from home, I mean, you wake up and you're kind of at work. And when you stop work, you're still kind of at work. And it does require making a real shift in your mindset that this is the time that I'm going to work. And this is the time that I'm going to put the computer down and not work. And you have to really be disciplined to do that. I know I've had to discipline myself to say after, my wife comes home and it's dinner time, after that, there's no more work. I'm going to, I look at my calendar items or my to-do list and I go, is there anything that cannot wait until tomorrow morning? And if the answer is no, then work doesn't happen anymore.
There you go.
Right? And if it's yes, then I get it done really quickly and then I clock out and go back to watch a movie or do something with my wife. But that's really, really important to develop that discipline.
Yes, and boy, you said that word. I was just going to add to discipline, self-discipline.
Yes.
That it's so easy to get wrapped up, and particularly if you're working from home. Well, I'm working from home. I'll just go ahead and before you know, you've worked another 2 hours and go,
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
Yeah. It's
where
really easy to do. You have
yeah,
discipline and you have to, set a timer on yourself. And it's not good for you mentally to just work around the clock. You have to have times where you're working and you have to have times where you're not. And you let your brain down, if you will, like you let your hair down. I don't have a lot of hair, so I can't really do that. But, you know, but you have to let your hair down and just kind of like, okay, the work is done. Whatever I got to do, I'll pick it up in the morning and I'll start when I start back to work again.
yeah. There's so many things you said that tap into. I saw that a big part of your podcast is all about productivity. So
Yes.
when I paint mental pictures and offer tips. And they work for me, and I certainly want to preface this by saying to you, Gerald, and to your audience that to be mindful of what I'm going to say. If I share with you a tool, something that works for me, you're more than welcome to say, "Well, I don't think that would work for me," and I have to say that's fine.
Right.
But then I would say, "But what do you know about yourself? What do you think will work for you?" When you take a step back, you observe it. Did what I'm implementing? Did it work? If not, what do I need to tweak? So,
Right.
so here's what I do even in retirement, semi-retired. I still do this every single morning. I have a to-do list.
Yes.
I'm old school, so I write everything down with pen and paper. So
Yes.
I write down tasks.
I do
And
the same thing.
good. And so then I'll say to myself, here's a task I really don't want to do, and it would be easy to procrastinate. And I'll say, well, Steve, come lunchtime, you're going to get hungry, right? Well, yeah. Well, you can do lunch, but not until you're doing the task that you're procrastinating on that you don't want to do to reward yourself. And
Wow. Okay.
so then you were saying that about clocking out at the end of the day. So an hour before your stop time, you want to look over your list and ask and answer, is there anything left on the task list that I must do before I end the day?
Right.
Well, then prioritize it, do it. And
Yes.
then you say, well, what task can be moved over to tomorrow's list of tasks?
Right.
And then we're implementing self-discipline, we're overcoming procrastination, we're productive, we're looking over our list and we're crossing things off. And you look over your day and say, wow, that has been a productive day.
Exactly, exactly, and that really makes a big difference, and and you also get a really big hit when you have put together a list, you've prioritized it, and you're knocking things off your list, and what I love more than anything is to put a scratch over that task item, because that gives me a dopamine hit, if you will, because it's like, "Okay, thumbs up, I got that one done. I made a big dent," and I focus on what are those critical things that have to get done, and especially for me when I first if you listen to my first podcast, I talk about the vestibular and the vertigo situation I had, and that was because of stress that I learned later on, and so as I was recovering and getting back on my feet, one of the reasons I started this podcast was I realized that productivity is not about being always on. It is about developing your goals, developing your priorities, and then focusing on the most important thing, as Brian Tracy would say, eat that frog, eat the big frog first. It's focusing on the most important thing and then balancing, taking a break. And what I found was that even on days where I could only do one thing, if I got the most important thing done, that gave me enough energy to go through the next day to say, okay, that's all I can do today because of recovering and I need to rest and I need to give my body a chance to recover. But I was still making progress. Right? I was still making progress. And
Yep.
so when I think about your book, as I was going through your book and kind of looking at different sections of it, I realized it's really a mentor's guide. Like you're not a like I call mentors, you're either a travel agent or a tour guide, right? And you're not a travel agent because you've actually been there and done a lot of everything that you're talking about, you've done. So I call that kind of mentor a tour guide because they can take you over and over on the different tours and show you all the things that you should look at. And that's really how I looked at your book. And it's a really great book for coaches, trainers, anyone who's being an independent consultant to some extent or a clinician that's looking to create a business. It's a great reference guide of how to go about thinking, how to work with people, how to set it up, how to think about your practice in a way that gives you your life where you're living out your values. So in thinking about that, your book emphasizes helping new clinicians with developing confidence and competence. What is the biggest productivity challenge that people face when they start out?
Mm. In light of what we've been talking about, or I started off by saying that people have a difficult time separating their label as a clinician follows them. I'll just
Yeah.
share, I don't know why my mind goes in these different directions. I'll be at a party and somebody will say, well, Steve, what do you do for a living? I say, well, I'm a psychotherapist. Oh, what? He's going to psychoanalyze us. I go, hey, I'm just like you guys. If you're a plumber, I don't say, hey, show me how you do plumbing. So I'm just
Exactly.
a regular guy that just came to have fun. And so it's separating it. So if I said to you to your audience about you use the word balance, I could show you it's in the book, but it would show you different dividing your life into different aspects, not only about work, but your relationships, your
Yep.
family relationships, your interpersonal relationship, spirituality, interests and hobbies, all different kinds of things. And said I would say it's really important in my mind for us to have goals in every single area of our life.
Right.
And I tell the story that I was working with this woman, and that's all she had was just work. And I said, well, what happens in a woman's world if work isn't going very well for them, or she has to retire? that 100% of our life is focused on work. And for other individuals, all they are focused on is their marriage and
Right.
work. And I say, well, so what happens if one of those two things is out of sync? It represents 50% of
Right.
the world. Well, what would happen instead if you focus on each of those areas that I was trying to share? Then one of those things isn't going very well for you. Look at all the balance of all the other areas.
Yes. Yes. That's a really important way to look at life, and that kind of drives me to a section of your book where you talk about the goal wheel, right?
That's it.
Where it's divided, and it kind of reminded me of the Stephen Covey model where and I actually use that now where I will do my to-do list in a moleskin notebook. And what I will do is for each section, I will put down the major area of my life, whether it's personal, whether it's CEO, whether it's an author, podcaster, a writer, and so on. And then I have things for personal development and then just area where I take notes. And then I look in those areas and I think of what's the most important things. But when I develop my goals or my affirmations of what do I want to be in these areas of my life, I kind of think in that goal wheel that you have there. And then I kind of define in every area those goals that I can go after. And I personally will spend time in the morning reviewing that, writing them out by hand, listening to meditative music. It may sound like a lot of time, but it really gets me focused. So when you talk about your goal wheel, how can someone use that to develop balance, to develop their own well-being and really focus on, having that more holistic lifestyle, if you will?
Mm. Well, then I just stay consistent. Again, I write everything down.
Yes.
So I start off with pen and paper, and I start just take any particular area and just free thoughts of what goals would you like to attain in that particular area. And so I've been married for over 30 years now, and so I'd say so. After having been married for 30 years, is there anything I can do to improve in my marriage? Well, my wife were next to me. She said, well, absolutely. So you could take other things in your life. So I always say I'm a wannabe tennis player. So
Okay.
I'm just turned 7 years old and I still take tennis lessons.
That's
And
good. Yeah.
so I've been playing tennis since I was 13. So I certainly have goals
Right.
that I wanted to achieve as a tennis player. I don't play matches, but whenever I'm hitting with somebody hard hitting, I always have goals in mind of what I'm wanting to achieve. So take whatever area in your life and you say, gee, what goals would I like to attain?
Yes. Yeah. And I find that having a well-rounded set of goals really helps me to feel whole as a person. Because again, if you have a day where things didn't go exactly as you wanted them to go at work, and if you have a hobby that you have some goals around, then you can go spend time on your hobby, or you can spend time with your family, or you can spend time in the other areas or compartments of your life that will kind of fill in the gaps of what you have for that day. And then you start the next day fresh, right? It's like my dad always would say, "Just keep saying good morning." You just keep saying good morning and start the next day and go, "Okay, what are we gonna do today? How are we gonna tackle it?" And then start over. But if you only have work and one other thing in your life and one goes bad, then half of your life has gone down the tubes, and that becomes very hard and very frustrating.
Yes, it can. And that's part of what my book is about is prevention, being not reactive but proactive.
Right. Now let me ask you this. In your book, again, you talk about the concept of building a practice, but also not taking on your clients' monkeys, if you will, or taking on their problems.
Mm-hmm.
But in your experience, how does aligning one's personal practice and values impact your overall productivity and job satisfaction when you are in a place where you're constantly hearing other people's problems, but because you have really kind of honed in on what's important for you and your values, and you're holding on to those. How does that help you navigate through all of that chaos?
Gosh, it taps into all kinds of stuff. One is after all these years, I hope that I'm not jaded. I hope that I remain authentic. The biggest advice I can listen to just people, whether it's a clinician or whatever. I heard this many years ago that says, "I never learn anything when I'm the one who's talking."
Yes.
And that goes for clients too. You can't listen in if you're already taking the lead and you're already, well, here's a cookie cutter approach. Well, they'll know that. Well, you weren't
Right.
even listening to me.
Right.
So you got to take the time to, and it's okay if you're out on a limb and you hypothesize something. Well, not exactly. Okay, well, help me out. Where did I go astray?
Right.
And you don't lose any face by asking. Well, correct me. How did I go off on a side rail or a rabbit hole? Get me back.
Gotcha.
Okay, so it's listening, and I mean mindfully. It's not thinking about anything else. It's not thinking about if it's 10 o'clock in the morning. Gee, what am I going to have for lunch? No, you're fully attending to the client. Or if you're home and your spouse is talking to them, fully listening to them. And
Right.
I could go there too. That oftentimes when spouses are talking, instead of fully lit, I heard this many years ago that we only hear 60 to 80% of what people say. Well, why isn't it closer to 100%? Well, because we're thinking about other things.
Right. We're thinking about other things, or we're thinking about what we're gonna say.
Exactly. Or how we're going to rebut what the person said.
Right.
And so that's where I say mindfulness and not thinking about what you're going to reply, but really listening to what the other person is saying. And when they finally finish saying, this is not your opportunity to say, well, now let me tell you what I think. No, what I want to suggest instead, because nobody ever does this, which is to summarize what you heard the other person saying.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So you would say, well, if I heard you correctly, I heard you say da 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 da. Also need to put in there, nodding your head does not mean that we're always in agreement. It just means I'm following your train of thought.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
so then a summary helps the other person to hear that you were listening to them and you were engaging in eye contact.
Yep.
Maybe even if it's your spouse, you're holding their hand and say, "Hey, it's really, I know this is really important to you. I really want to be engaged with you as we talk about this that's so important to you." And then finding a common goals.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
and so then I always, if it's a marital session or marital setting, I'll say, "This is no ego in this." So it's not, well, because I'm the man, we have to do it this way, or because I'm a woman, my parents told me that to equal rights and all that. No, let go of all that. What's in the best interest of our relationship?
Right.
And so then, if you had that in mind, you could go to think about a team sports, and you have a really, really good basketball player. And well, the other five players will hone in on that one basketball player, so you can't win without the other team, without
Right.
the teammates.
Right.
Well, to succeed in marriage, the two of you have to work as a team.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So holding on to your values is really important, but you also have to really make sure that the other person or the people around you are being heard and being listened to and being felt like they're being included in the process.
Absolutely.
Now
And
you also go ahead.
I was just going to say, you can take that, what I just said. I talked about clients and a clinician. I talked about it in a marital setting, but if we talk about productivity, you can take that into the workplace too. And I was working with the Federal Employee Assistance Program. I was working with federal agencies, both supervisors and employees, and how it was so important for both sides to be heard, to be listened to, of how to work together for the common goals of, in this case, I was working with federal agencies, but it
Right.
doesn't really matter in the workplace. It's the same issues that are going on, and it's being heard, being feel like that we're respected.
Gotcha.
That we each have a role to play in the success of the company, success of the workplace.
Yeah, that's really, really important. Now, you also talk about the use of humor in therapy. How can incorporating humor enhance therapeutic outcomes or even clinician resilience as they are dealing with all of the challenges that they're facing?
Even from the first time I'm talking to somebody, even as we're setting our first appointment, I try to add humor, finding a way of getting. And I say, well, that's the essence of my counseling approach. I take very, very serious why people come to counseling. But there's not an oxymoron to say, well, gee, I can totally be so serious that we can't appreciate a little levity. Maybe it takes me back to when I was a kid and I was maybe being a class clown was too strong. But sometimes in class, when things were too serious, my brain couldn't handle it. I had to find levity. And so it's sort of like in counseling sessions too. I sort of had that sixth sense that gee, we were really working hard this session. Let's take a break and do something different. And
Right.
I really have enjoyed working with kids too. And I tell the corniest jokes. And so I said, well, we've been really working really hard. So how about if we do something for fun?
Exactly. So that way you can change the tone, get them focused on something else, get them to laugh at something and kind of take their mind off of the challenges that they're facing. And that's good not only for children, but that's good for adults as well.
Oh, sure, because we're just big kids.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, listen, as we're beginning to kind of land this plane of our conversation, again, I got so much out of your book. And, I'll just kind of like reiterate the title of it. It's Guidance for New Clinicians in a Chaotic World: How to Practice Your Craft While Preserving Your Traditional Values. And again, I really like that title. The subtitle really stood out to me even more than the title did,
Oh,
to
wow.
be honest. Now, looking ahead, what changes do you foresee in the mental health field? And how
Mm,
can clinicians prepare to stay productive and true to their values amid these shifts?
yeah. Gosh. So I'm a TV junkie, a news junkie. And
Okay.
so I'm writing my book and all these news stories are hitting me. And I go, and I was just going to write the book straight without getting into so-called controversial subjects.
Right.
But the more these news stories were happening, I go, there's a thread between current social events and psychology and counseling.
Yeah.
And something said to me, you've got to include these things.
Yeah.
I didn't want I didn't want to not be true to myself and say, well, if I don't address them, who's going to?
Right.
So it taps into my traditional values, and my belief was, well, others have traditional values too, and to be honest with you, in some ways, the field has gotten very liberal.
Yeah.
So I wanted to return to those traditional values.
Okay.
Uh, and so I'll just give you just one that's not so much controversial, shouldn't be, but the whole as a nation, we're still considering allowing states to decide whether to legalize marijuana.
Right.
Okay, so you can have a libertarian view and say, well, what people do in their own household? Well, what's the problem with that? I go, well, there's no problem with that, so long as you don't take your vehicle out on the road and you're still high.
Right.
Now you're taking everyone's else life at hand. And then I say, well, but there's more to it than that. If I said to you, Gerald, and I said to your audience, did you know that there's a phenomenon called cannabis-induced psychosis? And
Yeah.
yeah, right. So emergency room physicians talk about that. That a patient will come to the emergency room and they have symptoms of suspiciousness, paranoia, hallucinations, and there's nothing physically going on with them. But what's happening is they're induced with cannabis.
Oh, wow.
And so then well, all right. So that when I grew up in the 1970s, the THC level was like 3%.
Right.
Now it's like 17% and above.
Wow. So that's much higher.
Yes, and then back in the day, that's all you did was smoke it. Now it's everything and gummies and all kinds of stuff.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so
Go ahead.
so I was just gonna and then I say to the layperson, I go, and how about to the states that have legalized it? What has it done to DUIs and traffic fatality rates? And so why aren't we educating states and legislators? What's the hazards of marijuana? And do you really want another intoxicant legalized for people on the road?
Right. Right.
So one more thing which was related to that was also what's happening in the news with school shootings.
Yeah.
And I said, well, all right, let me I know other people have done this too. They started looking at the profile of a school shooter. But what nobody looked at, I found it, I wasn't looking for it, but there it was. All the school shooters had another thing in common. They were all addicted to pot,
Hmm.
all of them.
Wow. I did not know that one.
I know, I know.
I did not
But
know.
we probably don't want to reveal that because what that would do is it blows against the narratives. If we want to legalize pot, we don't want to let people know
Right.
about all the hazards.
Right. Right. It's one of those things where there's so many different, caveats to it. And I don't try to get into, all the different political things on the podcast and whatnot. But I think this is important from the standpoint of if you go down one rabbit hole, it can create so many different scenarios and create a lot of different damages. But as a counselor, a therapist, someone who's trying to help other people, it's important to be aware of these things and at least to know what your stance is and then how you're going to address it and then how you're going to, whether you're for it or against it. Again, I have vestibular, so I can't be for it. So, I have my own challenges naturally. And so I can't be for it. But either way, I think it's important to understand the impact of the decisions that are being made and things that are being allowed. And then as a practitioner of whether you're coaching, training, counseling, doing therapy, you're giving people guidance, right, for their life, and you have to have it based on core values or some values that are going to last over time. And, with that, again, thanks for coming on the show. It was an amazing conversation and a lot of really good things to think about, a lot of things to consider. But more than anything, I really like your book from the standpoint of just the guidance that you provide as a tour guide of someone who's, been a part of practices, who built a practice, who has held on to core beliefs that, you found to be true for yourself, that you are then able to shepherd others and at least give them that guidance and advice, and then leave them with something that they could reference back to around your book. If people want to get to know you, to learn more about you, to find your book, where can they go?
Okay. So it's available on Amazon or anywhere else where you buy books online. I also have a website. It's Steven, Steven Melman, psychotherapist.com.
Okay, excellent. Well, we'll put all of that in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on to the Productivity Smarts podcast. This has been a great conversation. And again, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your insights.
Thank you very much, Gerald, for having me on your show.
If you're enjoying the content and finding it valuable, we would appreciate it if you could take a moment and leave us a review. Your feedback is important to us and helps us reach a wider audience. If you leave us a 5-star review, it would mean the world to us. Not only does it help us improve the podcast, but it also helps us attract more sponsors and grow our community. Thank you again for your support and for listening to the Productivity Smarts podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to Productivity Smarts, where we help you achieve your goals and live your best life. We hope you've gained valuable insights and actionable strategies to boost your productivity and increase your happiness and fulfillment. Remember to apply what you've learned and keep striving towards your goals. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our podcast for more inspiring episodes and expert advice from our host, Gerald J. Leonard. Until next time, keep pushing forward and unleashing your productivity smarts.